The Lost Cryptids Conservatory, where we will shatter your reality to bring you closer to the truth.
Welcome to the Lost Cryptids Conservatory. I would like to welcome our guest, Amy Boo, tonight. And I would also like to thank her so much for coming on the show, Amy. How are you tonight?
Doing well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, of course. So, well, let's just jump right into it. What got you started on your adventure in the subject of Bigfoot and other cryptids?
Well, I never, ever thought that I would be interested in Bigfoot. I mean, I was talking to Chad earlier about how when I was a kid, I would watch Unsolved Mysteries. And so I always kind of liked the mysteries. You know, I liked Sherlock Holmes and all that, and the Hound of the Baskervilles and trying to figure out things. But I never thought that Bigfoot was real or that it even possibly could be real. I thought it was just a myth, maybe to scare kids or just, folklore that we have here in America. And that kind of changed. In 2012, I was a passenger in a car in Ohio, of all places, so that made it even weirder. But we were driving over a bridge, and I looked out the window, and I saw something standing along the shoreline. And my gaze kind of went toward this thing because there were birds flying around on a big cement block, for lack of a better word, that was out there. And they were like really making a lot of ruckus out there. So I was looking at them and then looked toward the shoreline, and there was something very large and very wide standing there. And as we got closer to it, and we're going across the bridge, and then when we were as close to it as possible, I look at it and I'm just like, this thing is alive. It moved. It was holding onto a tree, and it moved and kind of looked out on the water. Well, I guess it was already looking at the water, but it looked at a different area. And I just was shocked because in my head, what I thought about was Bigfoot. So, you're not on that bridge for very long. I didn't get the longest look on it. I couldn't stop, get out of the car and look at it. But it was impressive enough that's what went into my head. It wasn't like, oh, there's a man there, or, oh, there's a bear there. It wasn't. I know it wasn't a bear. Just I've seen several black bear. I know the stance and what their shoulders look like and the snout and all that kind of thing. So after, once I got the best look at it and we kept going, I yelled, I think I just saw Bigfoot, is what I said. So I wish, I think everybody who's seen something, you kind of wish you could go back in time and see it again and make it stop and get a better look, but you can't. But what I can say is this: it was, I'm positive it was not a bear. Whether or not it was a very tall man in a very wide suit, I can't say. I'm a skeptic at heart, I guess. So I want proof of things. So even though I saw this and it was very impressive to me, I still am not sure what it was. I won't say for sure I saw a Sasquatch, primarily because I'd say we were probably like 100 yards from it. And that's just like too long of a length for me to say for sure. Now, I don't know why somebody would be out there. It was all uniform in color. You know, it drives me nuts that I can't say for sure what it was. But my impression, and the first thing I said when I yelled out was, I think I just saw Bigfoot, because that's what it looked like.
Right.
And it was the width of it more than anything else that was impressive to me, even more so than the height. Because when something's standing there at that length away, I saw the trees that it was near and everything, but I didn't really have anything to compare it to. But it definitely was wider than something that tall should be. I don't know how else to say that. But the other thing is that that is the city's water supply in Mahoning County. And I've never, in all the years I've been over that bridge or around that area, it's called Yonder Reservoir, I've never seen a person in there. I know there have to be rangers that are out there. It's somebody has to be out there sometimes checking on things and that, but I've never seen a person. It's illegal to go in there. People try to sneak in and fish and that kind of thing, but you're not going to be right in that area for somebody to catch you. So that was, whatever that was, and I can't say for sure what it was, but whatever that was is what got me interested in the topic. And I started, after I called my mom, I'm like, Mom, you're not going to believe what I just saw. It really looked like Bigfoot. Ha ha ha. Because I thought that was stupid. It can't be Bigfoot. First of all, they don't exist. And if they did, they wouldn't be in Ohio. So even though that's what it looked like, I couldn't wrap my brain around it. But I started looking into it and Googling things and reading every book I could get my hands on. And I found out pretty quickly that other people had seen these, and other people had seen these right around that area. And since then, I've taken several reports from people who say they've seen them right around Meander Reservoir. And it still weirds me out because I just don't know why they would be there. It just was something that wasn't supposed to be there.
Okay,
And I have
a quick question. You mentioned you took reports in the area.
Mhm.
Can you explain that? What do you do with the reports and all that?
Sure. Well, I used to work with the BFRO, the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. And so I would take reports through their database from my area. And when I left them, I started getting reports on my own. And a lot of those come from fishing and hunting shows. So my really good friend and research partner, Tina Sams, we go to outdoor shows. And we've been doing that for a few years. The first time we did that, we thought we might get tomatoes thrown at us or something. People be like, why are you here? Because we have a big Bigfoot, right on our sign and everything. But we have found that we've been very well received and have got a ton of reports from hunters and fishermen. So a lot are from that type of a thing. I also do library talks, stuff like that. Things I never ever would have thought I would be doing was, first of all, I never thought I was going to be a speaker. And secondly, I didn't think it would be about Bigfoot, but I do it now because I want to get reports and I want to get sightings. So I have a big map where I, put the dots with all the different reports, and I keep them in some journals and on a spreadsheet. But there are a lot of reports around there. The most interesting one was I did a talk in like a kind of Bigfoot weekend for a local park, like our city park, Mill Creek Park. a couple years ago, and there was a lady who came to the talk, and she wanted to stay after and talk to me, and she was talking about how she saw a Bigfoot right by Meander Reservoir, like on the other side of the fence, because there are houses, and like in some parts of the shoreline, there are houses that go pretty close, but then they have the fence, and you can't get to get inside of it, or can you? But I've never tried yet. But
Yet?
It's on my bucket list. But she said she saw one with a duck in its mouth. Like, people are really specific about their sightings, but it was there, and it had a duck, like a dead duck that it had caught in its mouth. And she said, I know what it was. She's like, it wasn't a person, it wasn't a bear. Like, most people I talk to have much better sightings than my own. So, I'm not entirely convinced of what I saw, but some of the people you talk to, it's just hard to not believe them. And I'm fully well aware, and I'm sure you guys are too, that sometimes we're lied to. There are hoaxers out there. I know some of them personally.
And a lot of them aren't hoaxers. There's a lot of misidentification.
Yes, and there's misidentification. Exactly.
But the people believe it.
People want to just believe it.
Right. So there's both. There's the hoaxing, on purpose, misidentification or whatever. But then you get some of those reports that we've gotten at outdoor shows have been really things that have made me, I always say, I always say I don't really believe in Bigfoot. I think that it could be real. And depending on the day, like, I'm positive it's real. And then other days I'm like, oh man, I'm not sure. I'm just being honest. So, but some of those guys, those hunters, like, their stories really have convinced me that it could really be real. So that's how I started.
Now,
Awesome.
you have like a database or something? Do people contact you and you do profile and catalog times a day?
I do. I mean, mine's pretty small. Once I left the BFRO, I left their stuff to them. I still am friends with some of the witnesses that I interviewed for them, outside of that. But I have my own little thing going on. Yes. And it's funny because once I did leave that, and I don't know if it's just people are wary of an organized group sometimes or whatever their reason, I ended up getting a whole lot more reports once I left than when I was in it. And, it was a hard decision in some ways, not so hard in others, but in some ways it was a hard decision because I'm like, am I ever going to hear any stories again, But that's when I, got the opportunity from a friend, Dave, who got me that first hunting show gig or whatever you want to say, and that kind of took off.
Like a boat sport and travel show.
Yeah, like in PA,
cool.
right outside of Pittsburgh. Oh my gosh, my brain is not working right now. I've been sick, so I'm like, oh.
Yeah, you have been.
Yeah, I can't remember the name.
Florida Bigfoot Amy is saying he's glad to see you up and around.
Oh, hello. Yes, thank you. I'm still here. I'm still kicking. I go back and forth between feeling really crappy and then being okay. So right now I'm okay. And I think being excited to be here. I think I told you, Chad, I've been so bored because it's been a lot of lying around on a couch for me.
Well, lately, I told you the show's only an hour, so if you carried on to 2 hours, that's on to you.
Okay. But yeah, I cannot Monroeville. I was like, what? It starts with an M. Outside of Pittsburgh, they have a really huge outdoor show. So there's hunters, fishermen, like excursions and stuff that they have, like, all their booths and everything for. And the first time I went by myself, and I was there the night before, and I was setting up my booth. And I'm like, I don't know if these people are gonna think I'm nuts. not that I really care. I'm way past caring if anybody thinks I'm nuts when it comes to Bigfoot or otherwise. But I didn't know how I was going to be received. But I was crawling around on the floor, putting the carpet down in my booth because they wanted this indoor-outdoor carpet. And I looked up and there's like 5 or 6 men standing there. And I'm like, what's going on? And they were all vendors from other booths, and they all wanted to tell me their Bigfoot stories. So it was like, oh, okay. And last year when Tina and I went before COVID hit, we went to a hunting and fishing show in Girard, Ohio. And between the Monroeville one and the Girard one, we got 87 new reports from hunters and fishermen. And they, meaning new, like they weren't necessarily current, but people who said they'd never told anybody before. Yeah. Awesome. So it was awesome. So when you hear those guys, like there was this one older gentleman who was telling us about how he still goes to these shows. He still wants to go hunting, but ever since he saw what he said was a Sasquatch, he just won't go out in the woods anymore, and just the emotion on his face because he was an older gentleman and he loved it. And he said he can't get out there anymore. That affects you, Yeah,
absolutely. It can affect, it depends on the personality. It can affect people in different ways. Now, Robert Dendoven, he was asking, is your encounter listed on the BFRO site as report 40715?
It might be. I know it's in there because I did report mine. I think a year after I had it, I reported mine. So it's Mahoning County, Bridge Crossing, but I don't remember the number. But yes, it's in there.
Right. So now, in your opinion, the overwhelming response you've gotten at these shows is nothing that you expected? I mean, is it that good when you go to these shows? Do this many people really come up and talk to you?
This is like last year there were a lot. Sometimes you go and there's not many. I mean, you could go to like I said, a library. I've talked to the Audubon Society. I've talked at like Ohio Division of Wildlife. They used to have an expo, and I talked there and had a booth there. So it just depends. But I've had the most luck at outdoor shows. But it depends. Sometimes you have a day where you're just sitting there bored and nobody says anything, and then you'll have one. And usually what happens is like Tina and I or whoever I'm with, or maybe I'm by myself and you're just sitting there, and sometimes like 2 guys or 3 guys, buddies, will come walking past and they're like, oh, Bigfoot, maybe ask a couple questions, and then they leave. And then here comes one of them back. He comes walking back and he's like, well, listen, I didn't want my buddies to hear this, but I was fishing and I heard something, and something threw a big rock at us. Not all of them are sightings. It could just be rocks being thrown or audio that they
Class
heard.
B, yeah.
Yeah. So, but all of them will just tell you they're very intense stories, like that. I was saying that one gentleman, or, there was a guy that this wasn't from a outdoor show, but it reminded me of him because he was also a hunter. And I was talking to him about what he had seen, and he started crying, and his wife was with him, and his dog was all upset. And I asked his wife, this has really affected him, huh? And she said, yeah. She said, Amy, he never missed a day of work in his life. After this happened, he couldn't go back to work for a few days because he was a construction guy and they worked in the woods there in Pennsylvania. And, he was really upset. So that type of story, at least it has affected my outlook in a lot of ways, because, I can't be 100% sure somebody isn't lying to me. But in those types of cases, especially with hunters, they know it's not a bear. They know what a bear looks like. So when they're that invested, and it was just a guy just like you, just a normal guy, I can't help
I'm
but to
not
be
that normal,
well,
but okay.
either am I, but relatively. But like to be, I'm impressed by it.
Blake's got to fix his trouble, I guess.
It's okay.
Come on back, Blake. Man, I can't ask all the questions. I'm going to run out of questions.
Mine
Now-
always goes
now-
wrong.
Now, scientifically, you've done some stuff scientifically and worked with people in the scientific field. Would you care to elaborate a little more on that?
Sure,
our
that's
listeners?
that's my baby, I call it, and that's my favorite thing that I'm doing with Bigfoot, because I do a lot. I have my own reports that I take. I speak a lot of places. I like to be out in the woods most of all myself looking. I never find anything, but I'm trying. But I want to be out there. I'm writing a book right now, so I have a lot of things going on. But my two favorite things that I'm involved with, one is the Olympic Project, which we can talk about later if you want, and one is Project Zoo Book, which is my baby. I love it. And the reason that I do podcasts like this and the reason that I speak different places is primarily to see if I can reach any people in the scientific community that would like to be involved in the search for Bigfoot. So what it is, I am just a normal person. I'm a teacher. Right now, I'm a writer. I have my own small business where I write grants for people and things like that, editor, that kind of thing. But I'm also a teacher. But I kind of, sort of accidentally met these wonderful scientists that have really changed my life in a lot of ways, at least changed what I spend a lot of my time on. I I met the one young lady, and she and I are kind of co-founders of this, if you will. I met her through Facebook, which I'm trying not to spend so much time on because it stresses me out half the time. But I was in a Bigfoot group, and they were planning an expedition, and I saw that this young lady had asked about the expedition, like she and her friends wanted to go. And she asked a question nobody was answering, and although it wasn't my expedition, I was kind of helping with it a bit. And so I private messaged her and I said, "Hey, has anybody answered your questions? Because if not, I'll ask them for you, or maybe I can help you." Long story short, she was like, "No." We kind of struck up a friendship. She wasn't able to make it to that expedition, but she was saying that she and her coworkers were really interested in Bigfoot. And, I didn't know what she didn't know anything about her. And we, like I said, we struck up a friendship. Well, a week or so after she had told me that she and her coworkers were interested in Bigfoot, she dropped this bomb on me that she and her coworkers they weren't teachers, they didn't work at a library, they didn't work at a gas station or anything else I could think about, but they worked at a zoo. And then it came out that they were the primate department at this particular zoo. So that kind of changed everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. And what was going on was she and the head gorilla keeper there were really interested in Bigfoot. And so they would listen to podcasts and they would read books and articles and look in databases and all that stuff and try to find similarities between the great apes that they worked with, like gorillas and chimps and everything, and Bigfoot. And it just kept getting more and more fascinating to them. So they wanted to be involved. And I guess they had reached out to some different people in the Bigfoot community, but really hadn't gotten a response. So I'm like, I volunteer as tribute, like I'll do anything I can to help. Basically, I am the face, I guess, in some ways of Project Zoo Book and the coordinator of it, but I'm not one of the really smart people involved in it. I can diagram a mean sentence, and I can write, but science, although I am so interested in it and I've learned so much just from them, I was a reading teacher, an English teacher. So we started talking, and I started kind of hooking them up with different people in the Bigfoot community, because I had met Shane Corson and Derek Randalls from the Olympic Project, and I had met Ron Moorhead, and I had met, lots of different people in the Bigfoot community. So I was like, oh, well, maybe you could talk to each other. So what I get to do is now we have like Zoom meetings, is mostly what we do. We call ourselves a think tank, where we discuss different ideas, and we'll have different guests on and talk about different topics. And I'm basically like the person sitting there, okay, how about this way, but they're the ones that do the talking, and I get the benefit. I'm just a big dork that gets the benefit of being friends with a bunch of cool people, basically.
That's awesome, and
Yeah.
sounds fantastic too.
It is
Keep
great.
keep going.
Yes. Well, so now, like, flash forward a few years, and we have several different types of scientists involved in Project Zoo Book, some that are our core members and some that come on as guests. So we actually, we have anthropologists, biologists, wildlife veterinarians, primatologists, these primate zookeepers. We talk to an evolutionary biologist, was a guest. I know I'm thinking marine biologists. So we have a couple marine biologists, and they have some cool stories too. So we're like, oh, we could start talking about lake monsters and stuff now too. Because I was telling Chad I was interested in the Loch Ness monster for a long time. But it's fascinating. And then we have researchers also in our core group, and then we'll have witnesses come on and tell stories, and it's just so much fun. I guess you kind of have to experience it. But last night we had one, and I think there were 16 people on the Zoom. So I'm looking at everybody, and these people, like, one was a anthropologist / primatologist who helped with the Skookum cast, and all this stuff. And I'm like, what in the world? Tina and I will text each other. We're like, oh my God, can you believe this is happening? Like, this is so cool. But what we're doing basically, if you look back at Dr. John Bindernagel, who was a wildlife biologist, and all the work that he did. And he was one of the scientists that wasn't afraid to say they were interested, in the topic. Before he passed away, he said that he wanted to make the topic of Bigfoot less taboo. And so our goal is to keep doing that, to do the same. And even though a lot of our scientists can't come out of the Bigfoot closet, as I like to call it, because they don't want to lose their jobs, because even though they're very open-minded, maybe their zoo board isn't, or their university head might not like it that they're interested in Bigfoot. They, behind the scenes, there's a lot more science going on than people realize. And we have lots of plans, working on databases of our own, working on coming up with some scholarly articles, working on doing some micro studies. Like, we've talked about hooking up some of the scientists with some of the researchers in their area, and doing these studies together. So we have a lot going on, and it's super, super fun. My favorite thing to do.
That's awesome. And that's the right direction that the Bigfoot community needs to go towards, is working with scientists, behind the scenes, however they can to get some credibility, and academics to witness evidence and gather evidence too. So that's fantastic.
I think so. I know that there's a lot of people that have different ideas about Bigfoot, and a lot of my really good friends have very different ideas than I do. But this is just the trail that I'm going down. It's what I'm interested in, trying to see, could there be a valid North American primate out there? Could there be something? And although all of our scientists, they're not all saying, yes, we think it's real, but they're open-minded and have an awful lot of fun. We've never had one scientist who came on our group or one of our Zoom calls that has said, I don't ever want to come back. And we've almost always have had scientists, if we bring them in, they will say that they had no idea that all of this was going on. They didn't realize how many reports there were. They didn't realize that the footprint evidence, the audio evidence, and so people often say, oh, science, they just reject everything, but that's not true. I think it was the one anthropologist we have, she said that a lot of times scientists just don't get involved with things like this because they don't have the time or the funding. You have this little thing that you're supposed to research, and they just don't have time for it. So a lot of them are more open-minded than you think.
Now,
that's good to hear.
Gene asked a question, and I don't know if you have an opinion on it or not, Amy. You want to put that up there, Blake?
This one?
Yeah. Is it being used still, Amy? All the research and all the data that Dr. Bindernagel collected, I mean, you don't hear a whole lot about it anymore, really, to be honest. I don't.
Right. I should know the answer to that, and back in my brain fog, maybe I do. I know that Dr. Meldrum has a lot of John Green's stuff. And I feel like maybe he has Dr. Bindernagel's stuff too, but I'm not positive about that, so I don't want to say that for sure. But I'm going to find out now.
All right, there you go, Gene.
I often have students that ask me questions. I'm like, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. But yeah, I'm not sure. I should know that, and I probably do somewhere in my brain.
So, you want to talk about the Olympic project a little bit? How'd you get involved with that, and kind of adventures did you have with them?
That's my other fun thing I get to do, which I pinch myself all the time. But, when we first started Project Zoo Book, like I said, I was like, oh, look, here's all these really cool scientists, and they want to talk about Bigfoot. And here's these really cool Bigfoot researchers that are doing a really cool study right now. And if you haven't heard, I don't know if everybody in your audience has heard about the Olympic Project. I feel like everybody probably has, but I'll give you the breakdown anyway, I guess.
Yeah, of course.
So out in Washington State on the Olympic Peninsula, there is a site where a logging surveyor, so they worked for a logging company, they were surveying this area of forest, and they came across a bunch of ground nests and didn't know what they were. So this place, I've been there several times now, and it is very remote. You can't even get to it really unless you have keys to these fences that the logging company owns, or if you would just backpack in, but it's really thick with huckleberries and trees and everything. It's not easy. It's not easy to get to or easy to get through. So this is a very, very remote place. So first of all, I always say, if this is a hoax, it would be the most elaborate and kind of stupid hoax ever, because you would think that nobody would ever find it. Like if you're gonna hoax something, like you would probably want to do it where somebody was likely to come across it. But anyway, so this logging company surveyor found these nests. He goes to his boss, and I'm paraphrasing, and says, hey, we got to check these out. They have to be careful. One of our zoo bookers, he's a wildlife biologist, and his job is out in the Pacific Northwest to, like, if there's logging companies or a pipeline or whatever, is to make sure that they're not hurting the environment or doing anything that they shouldn't be doing. So he lives in the woods and makes sure they're, following their rules and everything. So they have to be careful about that. And to his credit, the logging company owners, like, okay, let's look into this. So they brought in, a couple people from government agencies. They brought in a bear specialist. They brought in a wood rat specialist. All these smart people, like, what is this? And nobody knew what it was. So it wasn't known bear behavior. It wasn't anything that could be identified. And basically, when they found the nests, there were some that were older than others. So they were degrading at different stages. They were set up along ridge lines, like on finger ridges, they called it. So if you have your fingers and they're like set up on the tips of these different fingers. You're going up and down in the valley and stuff. They were, I think up to 10 feet, across, kind of oval, or roundish shaped. They were made out of huckleberry branches. They were, or are, I should say, woven somewhat, not like a braid, so not like a tight weave, but definitely manipulated. And in Dr. Meldrum's opinion, and many people's opinion, something with an opposable thumb would need to be doing this. They had structure to them that he found, that they were made around these like sticks, that were kind of stuck in there to kind of hold them up. And they were on the one largest one, there was a point nest that was right at the edge here, and down here was like an embankment and then a salmon stream down below. They found a couple rocks in that point nest that looked like something had been clacking them together because they had grooves that matched up. All these like really cool things about this nesting site. Up until now, I think they found up to 24, I think, nests in all. Again, like I said, some were older than others. And we don't know what made them. If you look at the story of an area, like I said, with the hunters that I've interviewed, some have a sighting, some have audio, like they hear something, some have a rock thrown, or some find footprints. You put that all together and it's a compelling story. So the same for this area. Right. You have lots of really strange audio that has been found. And David Ellis, who's their audio guy out there, he's done his magic putting it through different software, where it's come across as not being a known animal from that area, not a person. So we don't know if it's Bigfoot because we didn't see it making that sound, but it's a compelling case. You found footprints.
Right.
Now with all these nests, Amy, the collaborating evidence, so you find footprints around these nests, you find hair samples and other things around these nests to collaborate the possibility that it is Bigfoot.
Well, definitely. I think it is. Like I said, I have some days where I'm like, I'm not sure, but I think it is, and I know a lot of people think it is. I just hesitate to say that for sure, because we didn't see a Bigfoot making it. Although last February, Shane and he's talked about this on his podcast and stuff, so I feel free to say it. He and Todd Hale, they came across something making the nests. So they heard something large. They go in there. It had moved away, but it was like in the process of being built. And that's been several years between them finding those original ones, and now there's new activity in there.
Is there a belief? Have you come up to a belief with what these nests are for? Are they for their babies, or are they just something they're making?
That's definitely one of the theories. One of the theories we've talked about in our Zoo Book call. You have the scientists, and then you have the Olympic Project guys and ladies. They've talked about, perhaps it is a birthing area or something, because it seems like when you had these nests that some were older than others, they're not used all the time. They found a couple nests that look like the types of practice nests that gorillas make, because they were smaller and they weren't done very well, and they were up in some bushes. And, like gorilla mamas teach their babies how to make a nest that way. There's a means of egress down the embankment. There's lots of food, lots of different berries and stuff. So it would be a really perfect place for like a Bigfoot nursery, if you want to call it that. So maybe it is, but primates make nests, some of them. Chimpanzees make nests every day. Gorillas make nests that they sleep in. They usually make them and move on unless they're in captivity, but even then they make it kind of a new nest every night. But that doesn't mean all of them, have to make a new nest every night. So we don't know. I'm the first one to say that we don't know, but it's sure cool. And I was out there last year. I took the train all the way from Ohio out to Washington State last year. I have a giant bucket list, and was one of the things on it. And when I went out to visit Shane, and he took me out to help change the batteries and the recorders and stuff, I'm just like, standing there. And it wasn't the first time I was there, but he's like, "You're having fun, aren't you?" And I'm like, "This is better than Disney World." It's so much fun.
That's how we feel too.
But you feel when you're there, you feel like at any moment he's going to come Bigfoot.
We're busting through swamps, getting soaking wet, and we're like little kids having fun.
Yep, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So two of our primate zookeepers flew out there with me in 2019. We were supposed to go back last year together, but COVID squelched that.
Right, of course.
But they took a look at those nests, and again, they're not saying for sure what made them, but they were very impressed by them. And
okay.
It's awesome.
Robert asked a question. Robert, Amy basically already answered it. He asked if there's any chance these nests were made by human bushcrafters.
Robert, that's a really good question. And that was the first thing I thought. Like a lot of times people will bring me like tree structure pictures or things like that. And I'm like, I am Miss School teacher, right? Although I grew up going to a cabin, my grandpa's cabin, I never really camped a lot or did anything. Two of the things that I've done since becoming interested in Bigfoot is, one, I got my certification through Ohio State University as an Ohio Certified Volunteer Naturalist, because I want to know what isn't Bigfoot. I wanted to learn more about what nature can do, whether it's animals or wind or whatever. The other thing is I started taking like survival and bushcraft classes. So my first time camping by myself, I used a Duraflame log and I could barely use the lighter to light it, and now I can make a fire by myself. So anyway, I just say that because I'm really interested in what else could do this. It's definitely made by something, and it definitely seems to need opposable thumbs, but why couldn't it be a person? And I'll tell you what, it is so far out. They are so far out. So say you even had a hermit out there, and out in the Hoh rainforest in Washington, there was that, I forget his name. He had a TV show the man with the beard. Yeah. So I mean, what if it's him, right? Making these nests out there. But there's no good covering, to save you from the elements. They had been going on for a really long time because of the different stages of degrading that they were in. There was no evidence of like wrappers or, something that a human would do. Can we absolutely say it wasn't people? No. I'm not ever going to say I know for sure. I don't think so. I feel like I would think that it almost would be more of a really crazy bear behavior than human. I don't think bears could do it, but it's just definitely more of an animal type of thing. But a big part of that is they wouldn't be very comfortable, to sleep in as a human being. They'd be scratchy and stuff. And just where they're located, and mostly because they don't have anything to protect you from the rain. So why would you?
Right.
You'd want something with a roof over it. So that's why I think it's not.
Most bushcraft shelters, usually built the same way or same designs. Yeah. Universal around the world. They're almost the same designs on some of the features. So, yeah, they'd Sasquatch stuff we found. It's not enough cover to keep you out of the elements.
Right.
For anything. So
yeah, and they're not the first nests that have been found. There've been other nests in other states and back in history that were found.
Similar to like what the Ohio grassman makes?
Well, the Ohio grassman, when you look into that term, that was really coined by like a newspaper guy called it that. They thought that they maybe were making these nests out of grass, but no, very, very different than anything that I've heard about like that. But there's a friend of mine who does research in Ohio who has found nest sites that he and Shane were talking one time on a Zoom book call, and they were like really excited because a lot of the ways that they were set up were very similar. But you would think, just like a gorilla would do, wherever they would be, they'd have to use the resources from that area. So if you're out in Washington, you're going to use the huckleberries, and if you're in Ohio, you're going to use other bushes or grasses or small trees or whatever like that. So there have been some things that have been found other places. And when I was out there the one time, as you can probably tell, I talk a lot.
No,
And
that's why you're here.
well, I was on a shuttle from the airport, and the driver was talking to me about Bigfoot because we had been talking about the night before, and then I was leaving again. And there was a gentleman sitting there, and it ended up that he worked for like Fish and Game, but he worked out with the Hoh on the Hoh reservation with the Indians out there. And he said I hadn't mentioned nests, but he's like, "Hey, we have these nests that we found along the one river there." And he started describing them, and I'm like, ooh, it was so exciting because they're not just in that one spot. So, it's exciting. It's really, really exciting stuff. And again, like I said before, there's a lot more science going on in Bigfooting than people might be aware of. They're doing eDNA studies right now with it. They have collected hair samples. And you guys probably know, like, if you don't have the root of the hair, it's hard to get DNA, and they could be degraded and stuff. But, they're doing a lot of really good work. And when I left the BFRO, I thought, oh, I'll never be in another group again. I just wanted to be by myself. But when the Olympic project came calling, it was an offer I couldn't refuse. And I'm just I feel very lucky to be part of them. They're a good group of people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We're very lucky to have you as our guest tonight.
Thank you. I'm lucky to be here.
Yes, we are.
You guys are great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And a lot of scientific techniques are developing, like you said, the eDNA and stuff through water and soil. And, hopefully maybe some new hair techniques can be derived so you don't need the root as much.
Well, they have looked at the hair, they've sent it out. Yeah, they sent it out to like Cindy Docent in British Columbia. She's looked at it. They've sent it to other places where they haven't identified it as anything known.
Awesome.
It's kind of reddish in color. It's an odd color. There's just different things that make it very interesting, these hairs, even though they can't get the DNA. But it's still a good piece of evidence for sure.
It just collaborates the site more and more. It's a fantastic site, and it's awesome. So, what's your plans for the summer and stuff? I know we're throwing a conference and stuff, and maybe
I hope to go.
You're going to come? Yeah,
I hope so. I was telling Chad, it was so funny. I totally forgot because I emailed yesterday, I think, or I don't know, asking about it and asking about next year. And then I'm like, totally forgot. I already talked to you about that. Like this these last couple months are like they don't exist as I've been sick. But I hope so. Like I originally had plans for that weekend and they got canceled. So if I can at all be there, I will be there. And actually some of my scientists might be there too. We were just talking about it.
That's even
so
more
I hope
awesome.
So. Yeah, I hope so. I am not sure. I'll just say, as I've been struggling with my health problems, I'm crossing my fingers and toes that I'll get to do any of the things that I have coming up. I'm supposed to be speaking out at the Medellin Falls Bigfoot Conference out in Medellin Falls, Washington, with Adam and Ken. They're going to be there, and Cliff, I think. Who are going to be at your conference. So I'm speaking out there, and 99% sure I'm still going, but I just have to get the doctor's okay. If I can't fly, then I'm going to drive. I don't care. I'm going to go. I'll take the train again. But I'm supposed to perhaps go out to Alaska. I was supposed to be last year. Yeah. We were going to be going to Prince of Wales Island out in Alaska with Extreme Expeditions Northwest. I did a little documentary with them in Stevens County a couple of years ago that just came out, which was really fun. We were perhaps going to go back to Port Chatham, Alaska, and that one made me cry. Yeah. When that one got canceled, I cried because I'm like, I want to go. That's way up there on my bucket list. So maybe someday I'll get to go. But I'm going to be doing quite a few things around Ohio this year, and I've been out in other states so much the last few years that it'll be nice to be at home for a little bit. And when I'm not, I'll probably be back out in Spokane later in the year, trying to think what's going on. Hoping to get to Alaska it's either in September or October, I hope. But when I'm not doing conferences, because like I said, I feel very lucky, and don't get me wrong, I love to travel. I feel very blessed when somebody says, hey, will you come speak here or there? I know that, again, I'm the face of Project Zoo Book, and I have my own stories and things to tell too. I'm not saying that, but I'm kind of the representative. So I love it. I love doing it. But I think I'm going to take, especially this year, I'm going to take some time to really be out in the woods more myself, and my spots in Pennsylvania. I love the Allegheny National Forest. I grew up going there, and it's beautiful. There are a lot of stories around Cook Forest area, different forest, but Cook Forest area. And I'm out near Marionville, PA a lot. And I guess they're having a Bigfoot conference there this year. Even I'm like, I would have liked to have gone there, but I am busy that weekend. But yeah, my area that I'm at is the site where my grandpa's hunting cabin was. And there are a ton of Bigfoot reports right from there. So I'm like, hey, I'm familiar with this area. I'm going to set up right here. So I have my audio, devices out there, and I go out there as often as I can. And I don't talk so much about it, so some people don't even know I'm out there doing that stuff, but that's what I love to do most. So
I'm going to start following Amy around. I'm going to start stalking her. Like park down the road from her, follow her everywhere she goes. Amy, hey.
But I told you I'm not very good at finding anything.
Yeah, there's Bigfoot everywhere. It's so surprising just like how abundant they are in each state.
Yep.
From Michigan to Ohio, all the way down to Pennsylvania, all over.
Yep.
No, all the way to Florida, all the way to Alaska.
Skunk Cape. Yep.
That would be awesome going to Alaska. Actually, that's on the bucket list.
I hope it happens, because I really want to go there. My ultimate bucket list place is, Vancouver Island, British Columbia. I want to go there, and I will. I'm going to make it there. So, but not this year, I don't think. The other thing I'm doing, that I like lately, I've had the time to do since I've been stuck on my couch a lot, is I'm reading a book, and hopefully I can finish it. I'm the worst book writer ever, I think, because I get so in my head, like, what do I need to fix? And I should say this and that. And basically what happened was that I met a gentleman named Tom Page, and I don't know if you're familiar with him at all. He's not as well known as he should be in the Bigfoot community, I feel.
Like but a lot of people.
Him, right. I met him, and after I met him, I was thinking, I bet he has some stories. So basically, he was the financial backer for Peter Byrne and Roger Patterson after Tom Slick died. So Tom Slick is the person that most people know that funded, Roger. And when that went away, then Tom Page kind of stepped in, and he was a gentleman from Ohio and a well-to-do businessman. And a lot of people knew him as the money, behind stuff. Well, I had this inkling. I'm like, I wonder if he was more than just the money. And it took me 2 years to find him. And I called like all these different nursing homes and assisted living places in Ohio. And I would hear like maybe he's here, maybe he's there. And finally found him by a fluke, wasn't even doing that. And I called him up, and he was in his late 80s at the time. I call him and I'm like, Mr. Page, my name's Amy. I met you briefly one time. I don't want to bother you or anything, but all I would really love to do would be to hear your stories about Bigfoot. And he's like, oh, it's like, I would be tickled to tell somebody about those stories. And like almost made me cry, because he was so excited. And so that started a really good friendship between us. And for a long time, he and my mom and I, usually my mom came too, but sometimes it was just the two of us, would meet at this little like Amish restaurant or Mennonite restaurant in Ohio. And we would eat hot turkey sandwiches and chocolate cake and milk. It's like always the same thing. And he would tell me his stories. So he had actually written a book that was about his whole life and just had this little teeny part about Bigfoot. So he was expanding on that with me, and we were actually going to write this book together. And unfortunately, last year he passed away. So it's been hard for me, like kind of emotionally, I guess, and just I get in my head too much to do it by myself. Like I want it to be perfect so that it honors him. And I think I need to just spit it out and get it done, I guess. But it's hard.
It needs out there, but we also got to understand how you want it to be perfect.
It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want it. I want it to do him justice.
Yes.
Yeah, I want it to do him justice.
But it still eventually has to get out. I want to know.
It will. And he had so many good stories. So he wasn't just the money. He had been a big game hunter, and he had heard about the Yeti, over in Asia, and he wanted in on those expeditions, and he ended up going over there to look for the Yeti. And then when he saw the Patterson-Gimlin film, and he's like, oh, we have something here I can look for, he was all in, and his ticket to getting in on the expeditions was paying for them. So, but he went on them as well. So my hunch ended up being correct, and he has all kinds of good stories about Roger and Peter and their time together. And I think it's a story that people need to hear. So Amy Boo just needs to finish it. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's what I'll be doing this year as well.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be archived for sure.
Yeah.
Because a lot of stuff, especially the old timers, probably lost because of the stubbornness and of towards one another and all stuff like that. But
right,
a lot of things get lost when people go. So
yeah,
it's fantastic. Fantastic.
A lot of stuff coming up. A lot of stuff I'm working on.
Busy.
Favorite is getting the reports and being out in the woods by myself.
Yeah, being out in the woods is the best. Yeah,
yes.
Best time you can have, actually.
Yeah.
You said by yourself?
Well, yeah, I do go by myself live. I didn't even mean that.
I mean, like totally alone.
I do. I love it. That's one of the reasons that I enjoy going with friends and other people. So I more often than not now go with other people. But especially when I'm up at my own spot, I'm always there by myself. And it was one of the big reasons I wanted to take those, survival classes and stuff. So I wasn't gonna, end up dead out there. So I would know what to do. But I'm careful.
Amy, think about if you ran into a family of Bigfoot face to face and you're all alone.
What would I do?
Yeah.
I'd pee my pants.
Then what? Step one. What's step two?
I don't know what I do. You go out when I'm out west and I'm in my sleeping bag and I'm like, oh my God, like in Pennsylvania, the worst really you're going to come across is a black bear. And I've seen lots of black bear in my life and they always run away. Like they intimidate me somewhat, but I'm not like scared to death of them.
They do prey on humans more than grizzly bears. So.
But I've never had a really scary encounter with them, I guess. But you're out in Washington and there's cougars, and I was up near the Canadian border and they said there were grizzlies up there and stuff. And I'm like, that's a whole different story. It's scary. But, I don't want, my biggest thing, I'm very careful to tell somebody exactly where I am. I'm in the market for a new personal GPS device because I don't want the search and rescue to have to waste their time and resources on me if I trip, or
like a satellite, one.
Yes, I need to get a new one. But I love being by myself, and I'm not saying I don't get scared because I do. Like I'll be, even if I'm with somebody else. Like I let there were other people involved, but at our camping spot, I let a group of women researchers down south. And the idea was there had been some women that were camping there. And this was a pretty remote area. You had to backpack in and hike in. And they say they saw Bigfoot, and they weren't Bigfoot people. They were just campers, and they said they saw one. So we were going to see if lightning would strike twice. So it was just the ladies in the spot, and I'm in my little tent, and in the tent, so it's like a one-person backpacking tent. You know how comfortable those are. And then the tent next to me was my friends Crystal Panic and Christy Condi, and they were together in their two-person tent. And so I'm by myself, and I'm like, we had found a flat area, and it was right where there were different like game trails that were converging, and one that was coming right by me was up a hill. And I'm like, why did we go here? Because all night I kept thinking like a bear was going to come walking down that hill and roll onto me and squash me or something. So, but I do get scared, and I'm like in my tent, and I'm thinking about that, and I'm like, so I have two things that I do. I usually I want to be able to hear in case there is something, but once you get so tired you don't care anymore, I'll put my earplugs in, because then I'm like, well, at least I won't hear it coming and it'll just kill me, and it'll get it over with. And then the other thing I do is like I'll be like this in my sleep bag, and I'm like, I don't believe in bears, and it helps. So I do that, and then I can sleep a little bit. but I do get scared out there. But it's kind of like a roller coaster, kind of fun, adrenaline, scary to me, rather than being terrified.
So your alone time is you're just out on a hike. You're not out there for 2 nights all alone camping. You're just on a day.
I am. I am. Yeah, I go out.
Oh,
I'll go out for a week by myself. Yeah. I like it. It's very peaceful.
And it can be intimidating.
It can. Well, I was the person, I'll tell you a story. I was scared to go anywhere at night. This is embarrassing, but I'm going to tell it anyway. If you get to know me, you'll know I'll just tell any story. I was in a cabin with my ex-husband and our daughter in Pennsylvania, and we had like this rustic cabin. And so it wasn't really an outhouse. It was like a porta potty down this little path. But I didn't want to go because it was dark out. And I don't care if they went with me. Like, I did not want to go because something was going to get me. I was afraid of it. And so she was just getting potty trained. So she had her little potty in there. So I just used that. At night because I did not want to go outside. So I have not always been like this. I was always scared. And part of it, I blame it on that Sasquatch, the Legend of Bigfoot movie from the 70s, because that is another Bigfoot. That's another Bigfoot thing that I remember from being a kid. But I was like 8 years old. And just like in Boggy Creek, there's a scene where the Bigfoot's like at the window. And so I don't like to be in a cabin, especially by myself. I'll be in a tent, but if I'm in a cabin and it has a window, I think that Bigfoot's going to get me. So I was in Bradford County one time, and I had this tiny little cabin I got for like $20 a night. It was like a bed and a window, and I'm trying to sleep in there, and I'm like, no, Bigfoot's going to put its hand through this window. It's like going to get me. So I leave the cabin, I go in my car and pitch my tent, and I slept out there because it's just like, it's all in your mind. You can talk yourself into or out of being scared sometimes. So that's just weird, Amy.
Whatever works, man.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's awesome that you're out in the woods, and
I like it.
Everything you're doing. Yeah. I mean, it's what we need, more scientific help and cooperation, I guess.
Yeah, I love it. It's a lot of fun. If it's not fun sometime, I probably won't do it anymore, but I can't see that happening.
Amy, I think there's a big misconception in the Bigfoot community of actually how many female Bigfoot researchers there really are.
Yeah, there are a lot.
I don't think a lot of people even understand that, it's probably 33 to 66%. Maybe even higher.
I'd
33% women, or how little higher.
There are a lot of badass ladies out there. There are, Shelley Covington, Montana, we were talking about before. I've been out remote camping with her, and she's amazing. Like you get to camp with her, and she has her whole thing set up like bam, 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 everything going. She's amazing. And then Crystal, like I was saying, Crystal Panic from New Hampshire, she would be on my zombie apocalypse team. She was the one. We had to filter our water. We had to, collect our firewood, and we couldn't find any small branches, so we had these big logs, and we had to break them up. And she had this chainsaw blade that she just go, and that's difficult work to get that hardwood to, cut it through there. But she was doing that for us. Christy was setting up the bear bag. There's a lot of ladies. Tina, who I was saying, my research partner, that that are out there doing the work. And I would say at least half, if not more, of the members of Project Zoo Book are ladies, the scientists and the researchers themselves. I'd say maybe half and half about, but yeah, there's a lot of ladies out there. I know I'm forgetting, Kathy Strain and Diane Neese and all kinds of people. But there's a lot of ladies that are hardcore looking, and really doing a lot of work. So I appreciate you saying that.
You've got to.
Shout out.
There is a misconception. I think the majority of Bigfooters are men, but it's really close.
It's not always true. It's not always true.
Yeah.
I'm planning a conference that, for next year, actually, and I haven't set a time yet, for the ladies. And I've already gotten some pushback about it being sexist and all that. And I'm like, it's not meant to be. I love my guy friends. There's so many guys like yourselves that have been really encouraging, and I would go out in the woods with any time. So it's not meant to be that, but it's more of a celebration, if you want to call it, of the ladies. And one thing I saw when I stumbled across your conference coming up in Michigan, I really appreciated that you have several women that are speaking, and you don't always see that. And, I never would want to be invited to speak at a conference because I'm a woman. You want to be invited because you're a good researcher, but there are a lot of good researchers that are women, and not every group or person that puts on a conference even looks into that, I think. So, just for what it's worth, I appreciated that when I saw that you had several ladies that are talking.
Well, they do the work, and that's what we look for first and foremost. And
we have female team members.
Yep.
That go
that's
out
right.
with us. They don't just cook; they go right out. They do do the dirty work with us.
I was laughing when that documentary.
We do most of cooking.
Oh yeah. When that documentary came out, finally, that I was a part of, and I didn't know what I was doing. I'm like, just tell me what to do, and I'll walk over there, whatever. But basically, we weren't told what to do. We just did our thing, and they filmed it. But I was doing this thing I do in the woods, and it sounds so stupid, but I've gotten some weird responses. So I do this kind of like, yoo-hoo. It was one of the only times we got any kind of a response. So I guess it works. So have your ladies go out there sound like the Swiss Miss or something.
If it works, that's it. Then it works. So it can't be called stupid or,
I was just laughing at myself. My daughter said I sounded like a Disney princess.
Yeah, one of the older ones.
Yeah, exactly.
How insulting!
Well, no, like they.
Like, I think he meant like Snow White.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Movie, but I am an older one too, so I would take no offense. I'm glad to be here.
I meant the voice or the
that was
the sound,
funny though.
Yeah. Chad always got to throw people under the bus
every now and then. First time.
But it's been over an hour, and so we're gonna cut it off right about here. Definitely have you on again, hopefully soon.
Great. I'd love for you guys to come on my podcast sometime too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, anytime.
Anybody have a question, they better spit it out in caps right now. We're ending. So if you got a question for Amy, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, hurry up.
But hopefully we can see you at our conference, and it's gonna be awesome to have you there.
I'm 90% sure I'll be there. Yeah, as long as my doctor gives me the okay. I told Chad, I had my ticket in my cart, and I'm like, I better wait till I talk to this new doctor, but I hope I'll be there.
it's going to be fun, and we
Mhm.
got to just line up. That's awesome, and
You do. You have a good one. Yep.
And then plus
Yeah,
the people
yeah.
that are just going to show up and they're going to be there for anybody can go talk to Amy. If Amy's there out in the
I'll be there.
atrium, yeah, you know.
And can I say my email? Is that okay?
You can say whatever you want.
Okay.
Give your
I was just gonna
email.
say if there are any scientists, that are out there and interested in being a part or a guest with Project Zoo Book, it's bigfootamy@gmail.com, so it's easy to remember. Bigfoot AMY. But I'd love to talk to you. And if you have any sightings or anything near where I am in my neck of the woods, if you want to tell me, and if you tell me you found me through this show, then I would obviously share with these guys. So I would love that. Thank you.
And we're
we
not
got
that
one
far
question.
from you, Amy.
Yeah,
I
have you
know.
ever researched in Michigan or anything?
I have a little bit.
Throw up
I
a
want to
picture?
do more. I've been up in the Upper Peninsula and stuff, but that was more pre my bigfooting time. So I seem to be in Ohio and Pennsylvania, or I'm out in Washington or Oregon, or down south. But I'm telling you, and I was out in Texas as well, but I would love to do more in Michigan because I know you guys have a lot of sightings in there. I go down to
Oh, yeah.
Kentucky stuff. So Michigan's next on my list.
Yeah, Michigan has a lot of sightings. Actually,
Yep.
one of the earliest is from like the 1600s, I believe.
Yep.
Late 1600s. But yeah, we would awesome to have you up here, or your group up here, of course, anytime you guys want.
Amy,
We'll
we
definitely
have
host, and
lake
we have plenty of
monsters in
spots.
Michigan.
Ooh, I love
We have
lake
Dogman.
monsters.
We have Dogman up here. I've personally seen that.
I'm afraid of Dogman. People ask me if I believe in Dogman, and I say Dogman could be real, but I don't want to know about it. Because then I would be afraid to be in the woods. It's scary.
Something
Get Blake on your
roaming.
show and let him tell his encounter.
No, I would love that. That would be great.
He's got a great one.
I'm serious. Like, I just put blinders on because I'm like, I don't want to see a dog man. It would be like seeing a creepy puppet in the woods. Like, I don't want to see it.
I've seen other stuff. I've seen some stuff out in the woods. I've seen some flying stuff too. But
I believe you.
I'll leave it for your podcast, of course.
Okay,
and,
that'd be great.
Get a hold of me, Amy.
So,
you can get a hold of me anytime also.
Absolutely. Thanks. And same here. Same here. Keep in touch. This was really fun.
Thanks.
Yeah,
again.
thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Well, you guys, thanks for watching the show, and hope you guys enjoyed it. Take it easy.